Today I'm going to be doing a video response to a video called What is Thin Privilege by Marina Shut Up. The link for the video will be in the description. So let's get this started.
4-Minute Feminism is basically where I talk about a subject related to feminism in under 4 minutes. So, 4-Minute Feminism. Today I wanted to talk about what is considered even a controversial subject within feminism.
Who had the greatest bulge in the Olympics, maybe? No?
Thin privilege.
Ah, same thing.
Before I start, I'm going to say I'm a thin person, I have thin privilege.
And thin guilt.
I don't experience any form of fat phobia or fat shaming, so this is coming from a privileged perspective. People in the West very clearly live in societies that glorify a specific type of body.
I don't know, maybe it's just me, man, but I don't really think someone who's, like, built and, like, has a toned muscular, well, maybe not toned, but, like, has muscle and, like, quite a good bit of it, is really thin. Like, that, maybe that's just me. Like, it's just muscular to me, that's all it is.
That's the kind of body that's glorified in television, in movies, in advertising, basically any kind of visual media.
Don't get me wrong, Kim Kardashian and, like, Nicki Minaj and just women like that, they seem quite curvy, like, to me, and they're quite glorified in my opinion. I don't really think that they're thin, are they? Maybe? I don't know.
This glorification of very specific body types affects everyone. It affects your self-esteem, it affects your own self-image, it affects the types of bodies that you think are acceptable and are attracted to. So a side effect of this glorification of very specific body types is the idea that fat bodies are unattractive, unappealing.
Let's be honest, there are attractive females who I guess you could say are overweight or considered overweight. And I don't mean just their faces, I mean they can have an attractive body. And I'm not talking about, like, they got like a big ass and wide hips and shit and a thin waist. I mean they may have a little bit of a little chub, a little muffin top, and they are still attractive. Um, but then there's a limit, once you get to a certain point, things start not being attractive. Now, I'm not saying necessarily that you should be fat to be attractive. That's not the case. I believe most bodies, as long as they aren't either anorexic or obese or just completely overweight, same thing, can be attractive. There's just a limit to these things, just like there's a limit to being skinny and being fat and being muscular.
On the opposite end of this, a lot of people argue against the existence of thin privilege.
I don't really think fucking thin privilege exists, because, I would say I'm kind of a skinny person, but it's never really gotten me anywhere in life. Like, I mean, I'm still just as shitty as most other people. But hey, man, anecdotal evidence doesn't count for much, so.
Because very thin bodies are also stigmatized in a sense. There's no end of very skinny people telling you that they've been made fun of, they've been called anorexic, they've been told to eat a sandwich. So because of those experiences, they don't experience thin privilege. And don't get me wrong, this type of body shaming absolutely exists. And it's not okay. It's not okay if you're shaming fat bodies, and it's not okay if you're shaming thin bodies. But I think this is a problem that needs to be viewed systemically rather than just based on interpersonal experiences.
I would like to say all forms of body shaming exist, whether you be beautiful, unattractive, fat, skinny, muscular. You're going to receive some sort of criticism for somebody. For most people don't have, well, what am I saying? No one has the same beauty standard. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. We make, these things attractive. We are the ones who give them that value. And of course, no form of body shaming or any shaming of any sort is acceptable unless it's a criticism of something, like, an ideology. But maybe not like you're giving someone shit because, like, oh, you're fucking ugly because you're tall or you're skinny or you're fat or you got a mole on your fucking, I don't know, nipple or some shit. That's fucked up. But if someone is overweight and you tell them, I think it's affecting your health, I believe maybe you should lose some weight. That's not body shaming. That's just caring for someone and being worried about their weight. Sure, there's a point where like, oh hey fatty, you should lose some weight. That's body shaming. Don't get me wrong. But even the same thing with skinny people. If you see someone they look absurdly skinny, and you go, hey man, eat something. Like that's not thin shaming or whatever you would like to call it. You might genuinely be worried about this person.
I think one of the main privileges that thin people experience, and yes, I'm including very thin people, is that their weight doesn't exclude them from getting proper medical care. This is a very common experience where if someone is considered fat, they go into the doctor, and instead of focusing on the ailment that they're talking about, the doctor will say, oh, I think you need to lose some weight. It could be completely unrelated to whatever symptoms they're having, but that's always the doctor's first choice. There's a higher mortality rate for fat people for many different diseases because they're discriminated against, because they're not taken seriously, because their symptoms are ignored. And while
I don't believe this is true, and but maybe this is just my more fucking anecdotal evidence and just my experience. But as a young child, I would spend a lot of time with my grandmother, and she's an older woman, so obviously she has a lot of health problems because the old people they're fucking dying, right? Um, and she's also overweight. She's actually clinically obese, and like I don't mean like by like BMI standards where she's just right there, but like she's obese, and it's not because she chose to be that way. She does have a medical condition, a thyroid thing, I believe is what it is. So there's a legit reason. But as someone who's been to the doctor with her multiple times and the doctors have addressed her weight, they've always gave her treatment and helped her with any ailments and issues she's been having. And sure, they do add. I will admit that I have noticed that they will add. You should lose some weight. But I've never experienced or seen, even heard about this, that doctors will completely avoid an issue or ignore a medical issue and just be like, it's the weight that's causing this. That's not the case. But if there is some sort of study that disproves what I've just said and shows that this is the case with doctors, please show me. I'm very interested to see this.
Shitty to be a thin person who's told to eat a sandwich. They're never going to experience this kind of discrimination within the medical field simply for being very skinny. When someone is losing a lot of weight, doctors look into what might be causing that weight loss. Is there a disease or some kind of disorder involved that's making this happen? On the other hand, fat individuals usually have their fatness viewed as the cause of a disorder or a disease rather than a symptom of it. Even though there are so many cases where certain medications, certain digestive disorders, diseases, mental health issues can cause weight gain and should be viewed as a symptom of a disease or a medication, it's just viewed as the cause and it's viewed as that person's fault. Fatness and weight gain is always viewed as a moral failing rather than just something that could be symptomatic of a larger problem. I just think it's very fucked up that a person who loses weight is losing weight because of a disorder, but a person who gains...
Now, this is not true at all. Maybe it's not discrimination what I have received or experienced, but what it is just, I guess you could say, another fucking suggestion from my doctor that I've been told to gain weight, that I need to eat better even though I am a skinny person, that my diet is very unhealthy, and that if I continue to eat these ways, it will cause health issues because of the fact that the way I eat has caused my diet to do a yo-yo, basically. I lose and gain weight very fast, and that's unhealthy for me. Even as someone who's skinny, I'm still unhealthy because of my diet. And that's an issue we face in America, is a lot of us are fucking unhealthy, even though, like, we are skinnier. So less than 1% of U.S. adults meet the American Heart Association's definition for quote-unquote ideal healthy diet. Essentially, no children meet the definition. Christ. Of the 5 components of a healthy diet, reducing sodium, increasing whole grains are the biggest challenges. Eating patterns have changed dramatically in recent decades. Research from 1971 to 2004 showed that women consumed on average of 22% more calories in that span, and men consumed an average of 10% more. The average woman eats about 1,900 calories a day, and the average man has nearly 2,700, according to the government figures. About 43% of Americans have a total cholesterol higher of 200 milligrams or higher. I'm by no means a doctor, so, I'm kind of a layman with this, but from what I understand, 100 milligrams cholesterol or below is a healthy cholesterol. So if 43% of Americans have higher than 200 milligrams, 43% of Americans are good as dead. We're unhealthy. America's unhealthy, okay? Regardless of how many of us are skinny or fat, we're unhealthy. So in one of the sources Marina linked, it says, at this week's meeting of the American Heart Association, yet another study was reported which found that fatter cardiac patients were more likely to survive hospitalization and invasive treatments than thinner ones, even when adjusting for age and other contributing factors. In this analysis of 130,000 heart disease patients, 5.4 of normal weight patients died, as compared to 2.4 of obese and 3.1 of overweight. Yes, those who were obese were more than 2 times likely to survive. Okay, something I would like to point out is, even if this is true, even if this is remotely true, the thing about this is most Americans older than 20 are overweight or obese. And I'm quoting this, by the way. Over 159 million U.S. adults, or about 69%, are overweight or obese. Now, look, most Americans are overweight or obese, and while the minority are, considered to be normal weight, or what I'm assuming, the minority would be. Let's assume, including the anorexic ones, are normal weight. Okay. Um, sorry. The thing about this is, odds are that the people who are overweight or obese are more likely to survive because there are more of them. That's the thing. So yes, it would make sense if those who are overweight and obese are more likely to survive. It only makes sense. Yes, but I've had enough of this video today. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and favorite the video. Thank you very much. Have a good one, folks.